The following program is a production of Pioneer Public Television.
Hello and welcome to Compass. This week we look at something that happens only once in 10 years, the census. This national exercise in counting is required by the Constitution, and some communities are working hard to get ready for it. Willmar, Minnesota is one of those communities. They have a committee of 19 people working on it, and with us today we have two members of the Willmar 2020 Complete Count Committee. Judy Thompson is the clerk for the City of Willmar and one of 5 members of that committee who work for the City of Willmar. Pablo Obregon is the Community Engagement Officer on the staff of the Southwest Initiative Foundation and is the Hispanic Community Representative on the Willmar Committee. Thanks to both of you for joining us on Compass.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
So I know that there are a lot of communities that are starting to get moving on this, but I'd like to know why Willmar decided to get out in front of this. And Judy, as City Clerk, I'd like to start with you.
It's all started about a year ago. The census came out and met with us and just told us a little bit about the census and stated that, you know, because Willmar is a diverse community and other communities of diversity needed to kind of get a start ahead of time. So I contacted various members of different aspects of our community. So I have representatives from the business community, our Somali population, our Hispanic population, the school system, school and the education system. So we have pretty much everything that makes up our community. We have a representative on the committee. And then from there, we are setting up subcommittees, which then each person from our main Complete Count Committee is taking charge of a subcommittee, and that will delve in a little more at depth.
And this is really because the goal that you would have, or any community, would be that you really want a complete count. You don't want anybody left out, because there are a lot of reasons why you want every single person to reach the totals.
That is correct. We want to make sure that our community is adequately represented, you know, and counted for what our population is.
Because it drives a great many things over the course of the next 10 years, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But Pablo, I want to get you into this conversation because I know that there are concerns not only that everyone gets counted, but that as you work in individual areas of a community, whether that's neighborhoods or whether it's communities of color, that there are counts that need to be done there as well. Tell us about your work as a Hispanic representative.
That's correct. So I believe in community participation in all the civic opportunities that we have. And as the new immigrant communities have been settling down in Willmar, it's important that they all get counted. And one of the main reasons that I particularly am in favor of the hard work that we're putting this year on making sure everybody's counted is that we have a lot of people that are invisible in our community for several reasons, and it's important that we find a channel for them to become visible since they are our neighbors living with them day in and day out.
And of course, this kind of work that you're doing is going to take a fair amount of time, because I expect that for people who may not have been in Willmar 10 years ago, or may not have been in the United States 10 years ago, or might not have participated, the census might be something completely new to them.
That's correct. I believe in most of the places where we come from, there have been a census experience in the past. Unfortunately, a lot of times government and citizens in the countries we come from, the trust level was very poor or none at all. So we are trying to invite people to participate of the census, even though it's a government-led effort, that it is a good tool for the government to have, and it will end up being beneficial to all of the members of the communities.
So as you work together, both of you, on this Willmar Complete Count Committee, one of the things that I'm sure you're going to run into is people saying, well, what does it really matter? But the census drives so many things, and one of the things I'd like to talk about first with you, Judy, is the idea of districts and representation in elections, because that's both congressional, local. Tell us about that.
One of the most important parts is if we don't get an accurate count of our population, Minnesota as a state risks losing one of our congressional seats. And that's very important because we need to be heard. You know, our needs of Minnesota need to be represented. And hopefully for the funding, you know, it opens up funding options for our schools, for hospitals, for employment, different social programs, you know, like the WIC program, any English as a second language type thing, your handicap, your disabled. You know, there's many programs that are based off the census counts. And if we don't have an accurate number, you know, the funding will go somewhere else.
Sure. And when we talk about the congressional districts, let's drill down a little farther, because we also have, in the case of there's state legislative districts, and then even in Willmar, your city is divided by wards, correct?
We are wards and precincts in the city of Willmar. We have 12 precincts. So yes, depends on what the population is, you know, those boundaries will all have to be redistributed. And then, you know, we will get as many representatives as possible.
Yeah. And so, Pablo, I'm sure you have seen this as well, because of course we often hear about legislative lines or congressional lines or those kinds of lines being drawn, and that's also important for communities of color.
Definitely. We believe that it is something that it will affect, especially in the more populated precincts or counties or state representatives. And we would like to eventually not only participate in being part of the census, but also will enable us to maybe elect leaders from our communities eventually.
Yeah. I know one of the issues that we talked about before we went on the air today was about the citizenship question. And just for purposes of this discussion, I just want to mention that that question at the time of this recording, early in 2019, is going to be taken up by the courts. We don't know the outcome of that yet. By the time this program is rebroadcast later in the year, we may know. But there are a number of, at least early in 2019, there are a number of issues that are still hanging out there, and the citizenship question is clearly one of them. But there may be others as well about the way things are worded or the way things are described. And so people, I suppose, need to pay attention over the next year or so to see exactly how those questions turn out. So.
And the one thing, too, I just wanted to mention, there's a lot of concern, especially of the diverse population, that they're afraid these answers will be given, or their information will be given out to ISIS or turned over to the government. These are private, they are confidential answers, and the information cannot be shared with any government agency.
Sure, you mean being shared with ICE, Immigration, Customs and Enforcement, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And this, Pablo, I think this goes back to your question, your point a moment ago about trust, correct?
That's correct. I think that's one of them. The fact that the information that they are going to be given to the person that comes and visit, who are they going to give it to? That's one of the concerns. And like Judy was saying, that is private information for 75 years. So in 75 years from now, nobody will be, at least most of us won't be around to try to say, oh, you said this or you said that, and by that time it's too late if you have something to do with those answers.
Yeah. So we've talked, of course, about the importance of getting a complete count, and then there's the issues of ethnicity. But what are some of the other issues that you think people might not be aware of? Because there's, of course, a lot of data that is collected in the census for other reasons. Businesses, for example, Judy, business planning. What other sorts of things do people look to the census for, do you think?
Let's see, for the business community, you know, it helps them in recruiting employees and possibly the determining if they want to expand their business or not. You know, what does the community have to offer? What's our strong points, and are we a growing community or are we stagnant?
Sure, and another example might be, let's say if there's a data collection about what's the average household income.
Correct.
Correct, that sort of thing. What's the
Yes.
average household income? What's the average value of homes in the community? Because if we focus a lot on getting the number of people and perhaps get the population demographically divided, but there's a lot of other data that the census drills down to. And I expect, Pablo, that would be one of the challenges that, you know, a lot of people face, is understanding the depth of the data.
That's correct, and that's part of the education we hope to offer in the meantime before the next April 1st, to try to let people know that the information that is being gathered is going to help decisions that will affect their work life, their educational life of their kids, because it's important data that will be being used to make some decisions at a larger scale.
Yeah, and one of those might be, for example, I suppose, Judy, as city clerk, you've seen situations where there are grants to be considered that the city might be
Right.
available for, but that would require that there is accurate information about whether the city qualifies either on an income basis or a population basis or something else.
That's correct. Also, like the local government aid that the state of Minnesota distributes out to communities, that is based on your numbers,
Sure.
your population.
And since you mentioned the state, I'd like to touch about this. It seems that if you look at this census process compared to, say, 10 or 20 years ago, that there seems to be a greater state presence and a state activity through the demographer's office. And have you found that to be the case?
That is true. The state demographer's office is actively involved in it now this year. In the past, it's been more on the federal government level, so the states really weren't too involved. So now it's falling down on the states, and then they are working with the local people to make sure that we do get everything accurate.
Yeah, so there's the state demographer, Susan Brower, I know,
Yes.
and she will often use a lot of this information and explain to people how important the demography of the state really is to get a true picture.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Have you found that also, Pablo, that as you go through this, that you're expecting to see more resources perhaps than there would have been 10 years ago because of the state involvement?
Yes, definitely. There has been more tools available in the recent years, but I think with the data collection, this new census will help many of our new organizations to get organized better and to be able to maybe even network among each other, because right now there is a very silo way to do some regional work. So either counties work, Latinos, for instance, Latinos in Wilmar have little touch with Latinos in Worthington. And yes, we know geographically there is a distance, but maybe knowing that we are dealing through the same kind of economic data that is being collected, or educational data, or economical income, we can start reaching out to each other and compare data and be able to find solutions to our barriers in establishing here. So I think the state demographer is going to become a great opportunity for us to work with.
Sure. And you mentioned working with communities, around the region or different communities. I've also noticed that there's some more attention being paid now to the opportunity to respond online. Mm-hmm. That is not something that was there in past census efforts, but that there is an online reporting effort that we're going to learn more about over the next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the census is a great opportunity for communities to be accessible to that information gathering that we are going to be experiencing. So I believe, and Judy probably can explain it better, but we will receive the first invitation to start filling out our forms online April 1st next year, in 2020. And we're hoping that the grand majority of citizens will use that tool, the online tool, and then the second opportunity will be to start doing paper filling out of the forms. So hopefully, like I said, the online experience will be something that we all take advantage of in this these days.
Well, and I also understand that paper forms will be available in English and Spanish, but for people who want to go online, there are going to be many other languages that are available. So, I mean, as people look at these online or phone opportunities to respond, that if the forms themselves are intimidating, there are other ways that people can get engaged.
That is correct.
One of the things I also found that was interesting is there's also a video in American Sign Language. So as we think of individuals who, may find either the online or particularly the phone response is difficult, that American Sign Language is going to be available as well as a video. So as we think of all of these categories, and you think about the work of the Willmar Complete Count Committee, what are the most important things you think you need to do over the next, over the full year that you're going to be doing the work to really be successful? I'll start with you, Judy.
Okay. For me, it's just to make our community aware of the census, that it is taking place, and then, of course, the importance of it, and where they can go to fill it out if they have questions. Don't be afraid. If you get the form and you don't understand it, you can call. There'll be, many of us will be available to answer those questions, and we'll have that information out in the media as well for them to come to.
Yeah. Pablo?
I think Judy said it. I think awareness in the next few months, it's our top priority, and for us, of course, those who are representing minority groups, we like to make sure that we have information, printed information in the language of their preference, and the information that is being spread out will be in the languages of the people. Just a reminder, Willmar has 3 major minority groups, the Latinos, Latinx as we are called these days, the Somali community, a large number of Somalis, and people from Quran are also present in our community, and we are trying to make sure that we are starting to create the awareness in those communities.
And I suppose that as you do this work, one of the things that you've probably found over the years that you talk with some folks who may not understand how large some of these communities of color are, and a census can help to illuminate that issue for the people that you often work with.
That's correct. And as the census have been showing in the last few times, minority communities keep growing. And as a matter of fact, we are the ones that are kind of giving vitality to the communities who the majority of their population is declining. Minorities are keeping those communities alive.
Well, and one of the numbers I ran across the other day was that in southwestern Minnesota, if you look at 18 counties, something like 48% of the population is really clustered in 2 counties, I believe, and it's Candioi County and Nobles County. So you're talking in that case about Willmar and Worthington, and that would seem to underscore the point that you just made.
Yes, and you look at the smaller communities too. In between those 2 regional communities, it's interesting that people will start to find out that in the last 10 years, the growth of the minority population in those smaller towns will be growing.
Sure.
Will show signs of growth. So I'm excited to look the results already.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that, Pablo, some of the people who may be watching this who are not in Willmar or they're not in Worthington, but they're in some of those communities that are smaller. So can we expect that there will be many other communities like Willmar that will be doing some sort of, or counties that will be doing some local census publication effort over the next year?
I'm not too sure about what the efforts they are doing. The fact that there is 4 or 5 regional diverse communities or cities in southwest Minnesota that are working on this census, people will come to Willmar, and believe me, they're going to somehow see a poster or be given a flyer that will be telling them about the census. So even though they may not be part of Willmar, we will be reaching out as they visit our communities.
Sure, and I've heard some people in the nonprofit community describe that there are opportunities to assist with that public information by something like putting up a poster in your workplace.
That's correct.
Or at community centers. So is that the sort of thing that you envision happening, is people helping to spread the word beyond your individual work? Judy?
Yes, that is something that our committee is doing. We're working on, we do have some flyers that were provided to us, and we're going to be designing some local flyers as well and have those distributed to our businesses, advertised on different programs, I guess, to some of the employers as well. Ask them if they could post them up in their break rooms, on the transit buses in town, and our CCT buses do travel, a wide area, so the advertisement will be on the bus. So
Yeah.
they will see that as well. That
Well,
is our hope.
Sure, and as you look at the timeline on this, of course, you've got public awareness and information first, and then in terms of when people might be responding to this, is it primarily early 2020? Because April 1 is often a designated date, but people will start receiving things in the mail well before that point, correct?
Yes. It is our understanding that starting in March, probably mid-March, they will make their first contact with the citizens, whether you get a postcard in the mail. It'll probably tell you, the 3 options that you can use in completing the census. So if you don't complete it online or by phone, then you should be receiving a paper copy. There's several follow-ups, and if you haven't returned your whatever form, whichever format you choose to reply in, then there will be someone that would stop at your home and ask for the information and would fill it out that way.
And isn't that some of the work that you had to do already? In fact, one of the very first things you had to do was sort of identify within Willmar itself what the addresses were, correct?
Yes, that is correct. That was a large undertaking by staff. We have, like Les mentioned earlier, we have 6 staff members that are on our Complete Count committee, and we worked for almost 3 months just re-verifying that we had all the proper addresses, anything that had changed, new plats, new areas that came about since the last census 10 years ago. So that is quite an undertaking. And then we will also get another request to confirm anything here later this year. In the fall, they will send out to us again. We'll re-verify any changes that have happened in the last 12 to 16 months. And then that is the base that they will use to notify the people.
Yeah. So as both of you work with community partners on this, you'd mentioned that businesses, but are there other community partners that you expect can help to spread the word about census activity, either through posters or perhaps even events? Is that something that you would see, Pablo?
Yeah, our committee has been very intentional in trying to define what are the different sectors in the community that needs to participate. And as it was said earlier, the business community is there, the Chamber of Commerce, the school district is participating, the faith communities are invited to also have a subcommittee. All the different groups that represent our community are encouraged to find ways to help us bring the awareness. And for what I hear, there is a great conversation about the census going on as we are forming the subcommittees in Willmar.
Sure, and I would expect that over the course of the next year that would increase. I know you mentioned the State Demographer's Office, and I did find just a moment ago, and this is a rather long address, but I'll give it anyway for people who want to go there. State Demographer's Office, mn.gov/admin/demography. So, in fact, it may be easier to just Minnesota State Demographer into a search engine, but that would be one of the places, because as you said, Judy, there's a lot more activity there now because there's a lot of interest in making sure that communities in Minnesota do well.
Correct.
Yeah. What about some other areas where we think that we may see a census push in the next year? Businesses, communities. What about other things in terms of business location over a 10-year period? Do you think there are businesses that are going to be looking at the census data as they have in the past to say, okay, here's the average income, here's the growth, that those things are very important to capture for businesses either to expand or to locate or to do better planning?
Yes. A lot of businesses, only will come to communities of population thresholds.
Sure.
So once you hit a certain threshold, that opens your door to bring some of those businesses into your community. And that is something that the City of Willmar is hoping that our numbers will take us over the next threshold so we can attract a few of those other companies for better opportunities for our community.
I know we only have about a minute left, so I just want to capture some closing thoughts. Pablo, your closing thoughts on the importance of the census.
Definitely make sure that we continue to invite our neighbors who probably are invisible to our community or to the census, and to bring them out to the light. We like to say the more people in Wilmar, the better.
Yeah. And Judy, we're running out of time. Census.gov, I suppose, is where so many people go for information, correct?
That is correct. That is the federal site, and anyone also interested in applying for jobs through the Census Bureau can go to that census.gov.
Sure, jobs as census takers.
Jobs at Census, yes. And some of those positions are starting here in August, and they will continue on through.
Okay,
So-
good idea. Good. That's where we're out of time. So, Judy Thompson, Pablo Obregon, thank you for joining us on Compass.
Thank you for inviting us.
And that's all for this episode of Compass. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
Do you have an idea for Compass? Send your suggestions and comments to yourtv@pioneer.org.